There are moments in life when everything seems ordinary, until suddenly it's not. A crowded space, a passing glance, and then something shifts. You don't hear it, you don't see it, but you feel it. A quiet force enters the room, and without explanation, the atmosphere thickens with meaning. No words are spoken, no introductions are made, yet the encounter begins. Some meetings require no conversation at all. Just a glance, a subtle shift in the air, and an invisible thread begins to pull. The man, unaware of what is truly happening, is already being drawn into the unseen orbit of the woman before him. There is no logic to grasp, no speech to decipher, just a quiet magnetic force that cannot be manufactured. This isn't charm, it isn't strategy, it isn't beauty in the conventional sense. It's something deeper, something more ancient, a frequency that emanates from the soul itself. Carl Jung named it the anima, the feminine image residing in the depths of a man's unconscious. And when a woman lives in harmony with her true essence, without pretending, without chasing approval, without the need to be chosen in order to feel complete, she awakens this anima within the man. He doesn't understand why. He cannot name the feeling. He only knows that something powerful and utterly real has begun to stir inside him. It is not a reaction to seduction. It is not triggered by a carefully crafted persona. It is the energy, the raw, untamed frequency of a woman who has chosen herself, and because of that choice, she no longer needs to be chosen by anyone else. Feminine energy does not come from appearance or words, but from vibration, a frequency. There are moments that pass unnoticed by the world, moments with no audience, no applause, yet they shake the entire inner universe of a man. He walks into a room, past dozens of faces, voices, and movements, each one subtly or loudly trying to draw attention, and then one woman, quiet and unassuming, causes him to pause mid-step. She is not necessarily more beautiful, nor does she say anything striking, but something without a name seems to reach across the space between them. Like an invisible current, it bypasses his logic and touches something forgotten inside him. It is a perception that does not reside in the eyes or ears, but in the deeper terrain of the soul. The soul does not perceive through sight or sound. It senses through resonance, through frequency. Jung believed that human beings do not live solely by reason. Instead, we exist in a much broader dimension, the world of the unconscious. In that space, primal energies move quietly yet decisively. They shape our feelings, color our perceptions, and even steer our deepest choices. When Jung spoke of the anima, he was not referring only to a symbolic feminine image inside a man's psyche. He pointed to a connection capable of awakening something forgotten, an untouched part of the soul. And it is this true feminine energy, not from performance, but from presence, that creates the profound resonance we often cannot explain. We live in a society trained to judge by appearances. People praise a woman for her smile, her figure, her eloquence, or cleverness. But the thing that makes a man unable to forget her lies beyond those things. It lies in what he cannot name. As if, even before they spoke, she had already entered his inner world. Jung once wrote, in Man and His Symbols, "The psyche is not of today. Its ancestry goes back many millions of years. While individual consciousness is only a single flower in a long-rooted garden that stretches back through time. This is why a single vibration, unspoken, unperformed, can awaken something ancient in us, a feeling that feels oddly familiar even if we've never met before. Feminine energy does not arise from trying to appear sweet, kind, or flawless. It emerges from being fully aligned with one's essence. The woman does not try to impress. She does not turn herself into someone else. She does not exaggerate to be noticed. And precisely because of that, her stillness, her wholeness, emits something unmistakable, a frequency of truth. The man senses it even before a single word is exchanged, because in a real encounter, What moves first is not the mind, but the energy. This is not a fairy tale. This is not cinema. This is a reality many people have lived, though few have been able to explain. I don't know why I'm drawn to her. She doesn't say much. She's not the most stunning woman in the room. But I can't look away. That's not a romantic cliché. It's the soul reacting to a matching vibration. Jung would explain this in a simple yet profound way. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. When a man meets a woman who stirs a part of himself he hasn't yet discovered, he may call it destiny, but in truth, it is a part of his unconscious rising to the surface, activated by her presence. Many believe that in order to be loved, they must do something special, become more beautiful, say the perfect thing, or prove they are worthy. But when a woman begins to let go of all those strategies and starts living in fullness, when she knows she does not need to be chosen to feel valuable, that is when something remarkable begins to shift, not only within her, but in the space around her. Her energy becomes quietly magnetic, almost impossible to ignore. It's not because she's trying to be attractive. In fact, it's precisely because she no longer needs to be. Her power doesn't come from effort or strategy. It arises from the simple, rare act of being fully herself. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." And a woman who is awakened, who looks inward and dares to touch her own heart, doesn't need to raise her voice or play a part to be noticed. Her presence speaks louder than anything she might say. She doesn't have to ask to be seen. Her energy is enough for others to feel without her having to speak. That is the moment when a man may feel something shift inside him, suddenly, inexplicably, as though she has stepped into him through an invisible threshold. A door not visible to the eye, but one the soul instantly recognizes. The door of the unconscious. The entrance to something far deeper than words could reach. Have you ever entered a room and instantly sensed a change in atmosphere, as though the air itself acknowledged someone's arrival? That's the power of presence. Not loud, not demanding, but undeniably there. It's not a performance. It's not intention. It's truth in motion. Jung called this subtle yet piercing sensation the aliveness of the soul, not a soul veiled in ego, but one released from the burden of control, a soul that simply is. The fascinating thing is, men often feel this frequency long before they consciously understand it, and because they can't explain it, they remember it. They don't forget the woman, not necessarily the most stunning, nor the most poised, but the one who carried something profoundly real, unmistakably alive and quietly powerful. There's a stillness in her that disarms judgment, a naturalness that silences the inner noise. They find themselves thinking, "I don't know why, but I don't want to walk away." It's not her words, not her body, not even logic. It's the soul's frequency that makes a man fall, not into fantasy, but into something far more lasting. And the most beautiful part, you don't need to invent it, because it is already there, inside you. You only need to stop chasing and begin returning. When you live in alignment with your true self, when your external life mirrors your internal truth, the energy you emit becomes clear, resonant, unmistakable, and it will naturally draw the right person closer, not through tactics or performance, but through the magnetic honesty of your presence. Jung would never offer you a technique to seduce. He would guide you inward to be fully, truly, unmistakably yourself. And then let life respond to the vibration you carry. Because soul meets soul long before the mind understands what's happening. Number 2, the woman a man falls in love with is not perfect. She is true, and it is from that frequency, the one born not of effort, but of essence, that love quietly begins to take form. But this is not the romantic illusion sold in cinema. This is not the kind of attraction that comes with practiced lines or well-timed gestures. This is the kind of connection that leaves a man alone with his thoughts, wondering, why can't I stop thinking about her, even though she did nothing at all? That is when we touch the true nature of attraction. It is not rooted in perfection. It's rooted in truth. And in today's world, where images are filtered, emotions curated, and every word is carefully measured, truth has become rare and therefore precious. A woman who does not strive to impress, who allows her imperfections to be seen, who resists the urge to shape herself into a more lovable version, is the one who reaches deepest into a man's soul. She does not enter the room to prove she is worthy. She walks in and simply is. And that alone is enough to change the space around her. Carl Jung understood this with striking clarity when he wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul. Only the man who can quietly contemplate his own soul, who can look into his depths without fear, can truly encounter another. We cannot love fully nor truthfully if we are not brave enough to be real. And the woman who lives in her own truth, without masking, without shrinking, becomes an invisible invitation. She calls the man, not with words, but with presence. To meet her, not through ego or roles, but through something raw and unfiltered. A soul-to-soul encounter where there are no scripts, just being. Have you ever met such a woman, one whose silence speaks more than 100 graceful phrases? She does not say, "Look at me," yet you cannot look away. Not because she's trying to be mysterious, but because she isn't hiding. And when a woman no longer hides from herself, she radiates a very distinct energy, the energy of inner trust, a quiet confidence, a stillness that makes others feel safe without ever asking them to. Jung called this state individuation, the journey of becoming fully oneself, peeling away the masks and shedding the roles to reveal the truth beneath. A woman who has walked that path no longer feels she must be perfect to be loved. She knows deeply within, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Jung Fu Memories, Dreams, Reflections. She does not let her pain define her, but she also does not deny it. And it is that honesty, that profound, gentle courage, that creates an invisible magnetism. You are still watching this video, perhaps because somewhere inside you, you too are tired of having to appear fine, of needing to prove your worth. How many moments in your day are shaped by this hidden pressure? How often do your choices reflect the silent belief that you must earn love, attention, or validation by being more impressive, more charming, more worthy? Pause just for a moment. Ask yourself, honestly, if I no longer had to impress anyone today, who would I be? What part of me would rise to the surface if I stopped trying to be lovable and simply allowed myself to be? Let's explore a familiar scene. A lively gathering full of beautiful, elegant, and charming women. Their laughter echoes, their movements polished, their voices filled with stories designed to delight. But then, there is one. Not the loudest, not the most dazzling. She doesn't even try to stand out. Yet somehow, without effort, all eyes drift back to her, again and again. There's something about her, the way she holds herself, the quiet grace in her smile, the gentle, unhurried way she exists. She does not chase attention. Yet the energy in the room shifts around her, naturally, almost magnetically. That is not luck. That is real energy. She does not broadcast her presence, she emits it. Carl Jung once wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." Key psychological aspects of the personality. This woman does not become captivating by erasing her flaws or masking her edges. She becomes magnetic by embracing the entire truth of who she is, the joy and the sadness, the confidence and the doubt, the rage and the softness, even the quiet ache no one sees. And this changes her entire vibration. When she enters a space, men don't simply think, she's beautiful. They feel something deeper. There's something in her that makes me want to stay. Maybe that's why men often remember the women who are real, authentic to the core, even long after they've left. These women don't merely occupy a place in memory, they leave a tremor in the soul. A man might forget what you wore, he might forget what you said, but if you were fully present in yourself while sitting next to him, he will not forget how that moment felt. This isn't something learned through tricks or techniques. It's something that emerges when you stop resisting yourself and begin to allow your truth to lead. And if you are still somewhere along that journey, if you're learning how to live in your truth, step by uncertain step, remember this: your truth does not make you weak, it makes you irreplaceable. What do you feel when you hear this? Take a moment to reflect. Leave a comment below. Are you living in your truth, or are you still wearing a mask in the hope of being loved? We live in a culture obsessed with doing something in order to be chosen, but Jung directed us to a more honest path, a deeper realization. We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Jung, modern man in search of a soul. You cannot create lasting magnetism if you do not accept yourself, even in your imperfections. And once you do, you realize something liberating. You no longer need to do anything extra. You only need to be present. That is when a man truly begins to feel you, not as a woman desperate to be picked, but as a woman who has already picked herself. Paranoid, and that is irresistible. Number 3. Jung in the concept of the anima. Why men love without knowing why. When a woman walks into a room and every head slowly turns toward her, even when she says nothing at all, it's not because she is performing, it's because she is centered in herself. She is not fighting for the spotlight, she simply is, and that quiet certainty speaks louder than noise. In the previous part, we explored the power of a woman who lives in truth, one who doesn't wear emotional masks, who doesn't try to impress, who is simply present in her being. But what happens inside a man when he encounters a woman like this? Why is it her, and not someone else, who awakens a longing he cannot put into words? To understand this, we must go deeper into the very heart of Carl Jung's ideas and the concept he called the anima. Jung was not just a psychoanalyst, he was a cartographer of the human spirit. In his system of analytical psychology, the anima is a central archetype. It represents the feminine aspect within a man's unconscious mind, a living force, not merely a fantasy. Jung described the anima as the archetype of life itself, archetypes in the collective unconscious. She is not just the ideal image of a woman that a man might daydream about. She is emotion, she is intuition, she is the gateway to spiritual connection, the very qualities modern men are often taught to suppress in their everyday lives. So when a man encounters a woman who lives in her authentic energy, self-contained, grounded, unshaken, she becomes more than just a woman to him. She becomes a mirror, not reflecting her image, but his forgotten essence. He doesn't love her because she is perfect. He loves her because she stirs awake a part of himself he has never fully known. She touches something long buried, something sacred. The tenderness he silenced, the sensitivity he never voiced, the awe of beauty that exists beyond explanation. As Jung wrote, every man carries within him the eternal image of woman. Collected Works, Volume 9, Part 1. The question is, when will he meet the one who brings that image to life? You may have heard a man say, I don't understand why I love her so much. Or, there's something about her I can't explain, but it keeps pulling me in. This is not an illusion. This is anima projection, a deeply rooted psychological process where the anima within a man is unconsciously projected onto a particular woman. He sees something in her, something glowing with mystery, beauty, and meaning, and believes it lives entirely in her. But in truth, It is a reflection of something dormant within himself. Yet here's the key that changes everything. If that woman is living in truth, not trying to manipulate, control, or mold herself to be desired, then she does not reinforce infatuation. Instead, she opens a quiet but powerful doorway. The door to awakening. Carl Jung wrote about this dynamic clearly in 2 essays on analytical psychology. He explained that the anima is not the soul in a religious or dogmatic sense, but a natural archetype, a symbolic representation of the feminine qualities present within a man. These qualities, sensitivity, vulnerability, and emotional openness, are often pushed aside or repressed in many men. But when these parts are hidden, the man will unconsciously seek them in others. And when he encounters a woman who radiates authenticity, a woman who lives from the center of her being, without playing roles or chasing validation, he is drawn to her, not for what she says or how she looks, but because something in her feels hauntingly familiar. It echoes something he once knew but forgot. That is why the deepest bonds are rarely built on beauty, circumstance, or common interests. They are formed through a feeling, a strange, stirring sense of, "I've known her before. We ever met." Does that resonate with you? Have you ever been pulled towards someone you couldn't explain? Not because of what she did, but because her presence felt like returning to yourself. And here's the paradox, so subtle yet so powerful. Precisely when a woman is not seeking to be loved, she awakens the deepest, most ancient love in a man. When she isn't trying to be sweet or appealing, when she stops chasing the ideal version he might carry in his mind, she creates room for something real, for the realm of the soul to rise. Jung expressed this beautifully. The anima always contains aspects of the unconscious that can be projected onto a person of the opposite sex. If a woman lives only as a shadow, reflecting what a man wants to see, she only reinforces his illusion. But if she lives as herself, unedited, unshrinking, fully present, she becomes far more than an object of affection. She becomes a kind of living invitation, drawing him into his own soul's evolution. That's why men fall in love with these women without knowing why. Not because they're trying to impress, not because they're flawless, but because they've integrated their inner world. They've stopped chasing love. They are no longer ruled by fear of rejection, and they do not shapeshift to fit someone else's vision. They become living symbols of something within the man himself, a long-lost part of his soul that longs to be reclaimed. And so, the emotion that rises is not logical. It does not begin in the mind. It bubbles up from somewhere far deeper, from the collective unconscious, where powerful archetypes like the anima live and move beyond words. Carl Jung believed that true growth, true transformation, only happens when we integrate the parts of ourselves we've cast aside. He defined individuation as becoming a full individual, and that, in his words, meant embracing our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness. Collected Works, Volume 7. So when a man meets a woman who helps him face his anima, not to live inside fantasy but to return to inner truth, then love becomes something else entirely. It ceases to be a fleeting emotion. It becomes a profound gateway back to himself. If you are a woman watching this right now, ask yourself, where am I loving from? Is it from the fear of abandonment or from the fullness that already exists within me? Am I unconsciously using a false softness to be accepted, or am I surrendering to my original energy, untainted, unforced? And if you are a man, pause and ask, do I love her because she is perfect? Or is it because something in her reminds me of a part of myself I have never dared to face? We invite you to leave a comment below this video. Not theory, but truth. Share your real experience. Have you ever loved like that? Loved without understanding why? Only knowing that something in her made it impossible to walk away? Number 4, the difference between a woman who is hungry for love and a woman who is love. Not every energetic bond turns into love. Sometimes there is a strong, undeniable connection, an intensity, as if two souls have recognized each other across time. But then, without warning, it fades, not because the feeling wasn't real, but because something invisible made the man quietly pull away. What happened? It's not that he didn't feel something special, it's that he sensed a void, a silent space he could not fill, no matter how much he gave. This is the crucial divide. It is the split between two expressions of feminine energy. The woman who steps into a relationship hungry, hoping to be filled, and the woman who enters as the embodiment of love, already whole, already full. One makes him feel burdened, the other makes him feel free. You can feel the difference, not through words but through energy. A woman may be beautiful, intelligent, and charming. She might say all the right things, but if she moves into connection with an empty center, carrying the quiet hope that love will patch what's missing, then, without meaning to, she will transmit the silent plea. Please choose me. Please complete me. And men, even if not consciously aware, can feel it. There's something subtle but undeniable that stirs within them. They might not be able to describe it, but they experience it as an internal pressure, a pull, a weight, a sense of responsibility for something they cannot quite name. As Carl Jung observed, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their souls. Psychology and alchemy. That's why, when a man is in the presence of a woman who is rooted in lack, he doesn't feel lightness. Instead, he feels an invisible demand, an unspoken need to fill a void that does not belong to him. It's not a conscious reaction, but something primal, a sense that he is expected to complete what is missing, to rescue her from something unnamed. In contrast, when a woman is in love, not looking to be filled but already full, she enters a room differently. There's a quiet strength in her presence. She's not searching for validation. She doesn't need to be seen because she has already seen herself. And that, precisely that, is what makes her presence so magnetic. Not because she needs a man, but because her presence reminds him of something whole within himself, something he might have forgotten. That's the moment when a man doesn't show up to fix, to rescue, or to save. He shows up simply because he wants to be near that kind of energy, the frequency that resonates with his soul and makes him feel more complete within his own being. Can you recognize this in your life? Think back for a moment. Have you ever been deeply drawn to someone, not because they asked for you, but because just being near them made you feel better, quieter, more honest with yourself? That's no accident. That is the vibrational effect Jung pointed to when he wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." CW11, Psychology and Religion. A woman who has become herself, a woman who is not hungry for love, emits a silent signal that the male soul recognizes instantly, even if he doesn't know how or why. The contrast between these two types of feminine energy is not just theory, it's something we see in everyday life. A woman who is craving love will often feel unsettled. She'll need constant reassurance, frequently check for messages, and silently worry if the attention she craves starts to fade. She may appear composed on the outside, but her energy carries an anxious plea. She is living in a state of lack, and that inner lack, even if unspoken, causes her to unconsciously chase. Meanwhile, the woman who is already in love with herself, with life, enters a connection with a very different posture. She has nothing to prove. She's not rushing. She's not obsessed with defining what's happening or extracting meaning from every exchange. Instead, she allows her energy to do the selecting, and her field naturally draws in those who are aligned or repels those who are not. But she never clings. And here's what truly matters. Men don't run from strong women, they run from need, especially when it's cloaked behind a perfect smile. Jung understood this deeply when he said, Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Memories, dreams, reflections. A woman who is hungry for love isn't lonely because no one is there. She's lonely because she hasn't yet built a full connection with herself. She hasn't met the part of her that can hold love without needing to chase it. On the other hand, the woman who is in love, whole, aligned, and grounded, may very well be alone, but she is never lonely, because the deepest connection she craved has already been made within. That's what gives her presence its irreplaceable power. To bring this into clearer focus, imagine two women on the same date. The first woman is lovely, well-spoken, graceful, attentive. She creates a beautiful atmosphere, asks thoughtful questions, and knows how to navigate every moment with charm. But if you look closely, there's something hidden in her eyes, a soft plea, almost invisible, but real. Let me be enough to be loved. And there's the second woman. She doesn't say much. She listens more than she speaks. She doesn't rush to impress or entertain. Her presence is calm, centered, and steady. She's not performing. She's not evading. She is simply present. And the man, whether he realizes it or not, feels it. On one side there is need. On the other side there is fullness. And in most cases, he will be drawn to the fullness, not because it makes logical sense, but because that energy allows him to stay present with himself. So now, ask yourself with honesty, are you loving from lack or from wholeness? Is your love an attempt to prove that you're worthy? Or is your love a natural extension of your being, complete, unforced, and real? You're invited to share your truth in the comments. This is your space for honesty, perhaps to say what you've never said aloud, what you've always felt but never quite found the words for. When Jung spoke of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming a full individual, he described it as a move from inner division toward inner unity. And in the realm of love, no force pushes others away more strongly than the energy of desperation. Because, just like in physics, lack repels, wholeness attracts. A woman who lives from the energy of, I am already enough, doesn't send out distress signals. She doesn't chase. She radiates a quiet invitation. If you are awake, you will recognize me. If not, I remain whole. Carl Jung did not teach us how to chase others. He showed us the deeper path, the way back to ourselves. And from that place, love is no longer hunger. It becomes a sacred exchange between two souls, each full, each whole, who choose one another, not to survive, but to expand the life within. Number 5, light and shadow, integrating the shadow to become whole. There comes a powerful shift in a woman's energy when she no longer steps into love hoping to be filled, but walks into it as love already complete. Her presence no longer calls out with silent need, asking to be rescued, completed, or held up. Instead, she emanates a grounded radiance that draws people to her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire. A man isn't attracted because she lacks something, he's drawn to her because her wholeness awakens something in him. But there is a deeper layer to this magnetism, one that doesn't just attract a man, but earns his trust, his respect, and his memory. What makes her unforgettable isn't only the light she radiates, it's that she has dared to face what most people run from, her own darkness. She no longer lives only in the comfortable parts of herself. She chooses the difficult path, what Carl Jung called the integration of the shadow. Perhaps no concept in Jung's philosophy is more crucial to becoming fully real than the shadow. According to Jung, the shadow is the collection of all the parts of ourselves we've learned to reject, deny, or hide away. It is where our unexpressed anger lives, our jealousy, shame, insecurity, and unspoken longings. It is the space within that stores the messy, the raw, the deeply human pieces we've been told are unacceptable. In Psychology and Religion, Jung wrote, "This dawn does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You cannot reach real inner light by simply visualizing positivity. You must be willing to descend into the darker valleys of yourself and carry light there with you. For many women, this journey is even more difficult. From early childhood, women are often conditioned to be gentle, agreeable, cheerful, and composed. They are celebrated when they are smiling, pleasant, and pleasing to others. But when they show anger, they are labeled difficult. When they express desire, they are told they are too much. Their fatigue, grief, frustration, and hunger for more are quietly discouraged, sometimes shamed. So what happens when a woman keeps cutting off part after part of herself just to fit into the mold of a good girl? She may become easy to love, but she is never truly seen. On the other hand, something transformative happens when a woman begins to break the unspoken rules. When she dares to feel her anger, admit her confusion, honor her desires. When she allows herself to unravel instead of pretending to have it all together. That's when her true energy comes alive. She stops aiming for perfection and starts embodying truth. She becomes real, and that kind of presence doesn't just stir interest. It stirs the soul, not because she's always cheerful or endlessly supportive, but because around her a man feels something sacred, the permission to be human. Sometimes angry, sometimes unsure, sometimes broken. A woman who has embraced her own shadow becomes a safe space where he too can breathe without performing. And have you ever been drawn to someone, not because they were always pleasant, but because they were so honest it stripped you bare? Someone whose emotions, grief, frustration, joy, felt real, not rehearsed. Someone who wasn't trying to charm you, but who couldn't help but move you because they were deeply in touch with themselves. Share that experience, because it's in these honest stories that this community deepens. This is where truth grows. Jung once wrote in Alchemical Studies, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And he was right. It takes courage to love yourself, not only in your moments of joy, but in your anger, your fragility, your tears. But when a woman dares to do so, when she no longer hides her imperfections, but brings them into the light, then her energy becomes deeply full. It carries weight, resonance, authenticity. She no longer needs to script the right words. She no longer hides the messy parts. She stands in her truth with both her light and her shadow and invites the world to meet her there. And that kind of woman does not merely attract a man. She transforms the space between them. She makes him feel safe in a way most never do, not through sweetness or perfection, but through the raw, grounded acceptance of what it means to be human. A real-life example. Some women are always smiling, always perfectly composed, always agreeable, and while they may initially captivate, something often fades. After a few dates, the man senses that what he's connecting with isn't her essence, it's a performance. He starts to feel as if she's playing the role of who she thinks he wants. Then, there's another kind of woman, one who doesn't hide that she feels insecure sometimes. One who speaks openly about her past pain. One who lets herself cry even in silence and does not apologize for it. She's the one who leaves a mark, not because she wants to be saved, but because she has already done the brave work of saving herself. She has chosen not to abandon any part of who she is. And when a woman chooses that path, the journey of integrating her shadow, she becomes truly whole. Not just someone to love, but someone whose energy can hold love without breaking. Jung called this process individuation, the bringing together of all the fragmented parts into one unified self. And it is only from that place of unity that we are capable of loving and being loved, without fear, without masks, without illusion. She becomes whole. Jung called this individuation, the process by which all the fragmented parts of us are brought back into unity. In The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, Jung wrote, "Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming oneself. This process isn't about sculpting yourself into the perfect image that others expect. It's not about being admired, accepted, or chosen according to society's standards. It's about reclaiming who you truly are beneath the layers behind the performance, until you return to the one and only self that no one else can replicate. And that is precisely what creates an unrepeatable magnetism. A woman who has integrated her shadow doesn't walk through life seeking approval. She's not anxiously scanning the world for affirmation. She doesn't tremble at the idea of being misunderstood. In fact, she has let go of the belief that she must be easy to love in order to be lovable. She allows every part of herself to exist. The soft and the fierce, the graceful and the raw, the steady and the uncertain. And that quiet, unapologetic truth is what stirs something powerful in men, at least in the ones who are awake enough to feel it. So, if you are on the journey of returning to yourself, do not fear the shadow. Do not avoid those parts of you that were once shamed or silenced, called too much, too sensitive, too angry, too needy, because it is only when you face them that you are no longer quietly controlled by them. Then something sacred shifts. You begin to live, not perform. You begin to love, not negotiate. And love begins to find you, not because you're flawless, but because you are finally real. Number 6. No more chasing. No more needing to be chosen. Only vibrating. When a woman embraces both her light and her shadow, something profound happens. She no longer seeks acceptance in order to feel worthy. She stops trying to soften her anger just to appear lovable. She no longer hides her sadness to seem positive, or pushes down her longing to meet someone else's comfort zone. The moment she releases the need to adjust herself to fit the mold of the ideal woman, something deeply liberating begins to unfold. She no longer chases. She no longer begs to be chosen. She simply begins to vibrate from the core of her being. And this, Jung would say, is the essence of individuation. Picture this. A woman enters a room, not with loudness or performance, but with the quiet peace of someone who has already seen herself. She does not look around seeking attention. She doesn't attempt to stand out. She does not ask, "Will you choose me?" Because deep inside, she already lives by a quiet truth. I have chosen myself. This is not arrogance. This is not indifference. This is the energy of integration, when all fragmented parts have returned home, no longer dependent on the validation of others to feel whole. Jung described individuation as the journey back to the true self, a process where the ego is no longer the center of the universe, but becomes a bridge to something larger, something wiser. In The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, Jung wrote, "Individuation means becoming a single, homogeneous being, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming oneself." A woman who has entered this journey doesn't act from lack. She doesn't love to feel worthy. She doesn't give to earn affection. She loves herself first, and everything that flows out of her is a reflection of that wholeness. Have you ever met a woman like that? A woman who doesn't chase love and doesn't fear it either? She is simply present, like a quiet current flowing through the space around her. You don't feel manipulated, you don't feel judged, but you do feel challenged, because her fullness doesn't accept half-hearted energy. She is whole, and her presence quietly invites you to meet her there, or step away. This is what Jung meant when he wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections. The self is our life's goal, for it is the completest expression of that fateful combination we call individuality. The individuated woman doesn't wait to be chosen. She chooses. But her choice is not a tactic. It is frequency. And something fascinating happens when a woman vibrates from this centered space. Her energy starts doing the choosing for her. She no longer needs to analyze, control, or manipulate who enters or exits her life. Her field of energy does the filtering. Those who resonate stay. Those who are not aligned naturally fade. Like a radio signal, no one is forced to tune in. But only those on the same wavelength can even hear it. She does not seduce. She does not chase. She does not disguise herself. But she cannot be ignored. How do you feel hearing this? Have you ever experienced a moment where you stopped trying, and suddenly the right people, the right opportunities, the right love found their way to you? Or are you still, perhaps unconsciously, chasing something to fill a space within? You're not alone. Share your truth in the comments below. You may be surprised at how many are walking a similar path, quietly searching for their center again. Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists but will grow in size." And it's true. When a woman resists her truth, her loneliness, her longing, her need to be seen, she unknowingly continues to repeat the chase. But when she stops resisting, when she allows herself to exist fully, she doesn't need to be sought. She simply needs to be still and let her energy do what it was always meant to do.